right, everybody. I am so excited to have Dr. Jacquee Schieck on Hey Docs with us today. Jacquee, thanks so much for being a part of the show.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jill, for having me.
Absolutely. So, love to have my guests start off, in case somebody doesn't know who you are, about giving just a little bit of history about who you are in our industry and how you came to be to where you are. So, do you mind giving us a little bit of a history? I do know, and I want you to talk about this for a second, that you did do a
Sure.
startup as you
I
did
did.
this, which is, I think, really important to a lot of my clients
Yeah,
and listeners out there.
absolutely. So I was born and raised in South Dakota. My family is still there, and I'm a proud South Dakotan, but I migrated around the country a little bit and went south for schooling. So I had gone to Iowa and then to Kansas City, and then eventually made it back to Minnesota for residency. I'm a mom of four. I have four kids who are 12, 9, 6, and 4. So we're busy. And the startup that you mentioned, I associated first for about 3.5 years in a group practice and then did the startup about 9 years ago. Actually, it'll be 9 years ago next month. And so, yes, this has been a wild decade for us. Very
Uh,
busy, very fun, but a lot of challenges and a lot of learning in the last 10 years.
yeah, that's great. That's great. And 10 years in now?
10, I'm practicing now. I've been practicing for almost 13.
Oh, my
Uh,
goodness.
yeah, it goes
That's
so
awesome.
fast.
Yeah,
I still feel eternally like 28.
I wanna identify with the Jill in her 40s, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it's amazing how quickly things go.
Yeah. So, as I said, you did a startup, you
Yeah.
associated, you did a startup, have made your way 13 years now, and I
Yeah.
know that is the track of so many of the doctors that are out there. Usually, we start one place and kinda
Mhm,
migrate into another. And one of the reasons that I really wanted to have you on the show is I've heard you speak before, and I think
mhm.
you're just a wonderful speaker in and of itself.
Thanks.
But I think you have had a really great journey. It probably didn't feel that way at certain points along the way. But I would love it if we can get a little
Mhm.
bit personal and just to have you tell your story about what it was like in that startup phase of your life and being a mom of younger children. And
Mhm.
would you mind just talking to us? Because I know there was a point where you hit a
Yeah,
wall. And I think
absolutely.
that this is things that we don't always talk about, but because we all want to have it, we want to live our best life socially out there like nothing is ever going on.
Yep.
So, would you mind? We're just going to dive right in. Would you mind talking
Sure.
to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I try to think where to start with it because I think it's important for people that don't know me. I'm not somebody who dwells on the past. And I think for a long time, that was actually very helpful, a very good coping mechanism that I
Sure.
didn't even realize was a coping mechanism because I am. I'm just an optimistic, resilient type of a personality. But as you get older, you start reflecting on things and thinking back on things. And as I've been given these opportunities to share my story, I've realized that I do have a unique journey and I've learned a lot along the way. So I'm hopeful that with sharing these things and being now in a place where I can reflect back on that and learn from those lessons, that I can help those who are in that situation, that 24, 25-year-old 20 person in their 20s that's just starting to learn things that I wish I would have been told 10 years earlier. And again, I don't want to make this into a story of it was so hard because
Yeah.
it was fun. To be honest with you, the startup process is something that I really enjoyed, very much enjoyed it. And I know you and I are probably similar on that because it's a lot of creativity and a lot
Yeah.
of designing systems and just seeing your vision come to life. And there's so much value in that. And I never want somebody to think that they can't do that because
Mhm.
you can do it. And I want that to be a really clear message. But at the same time, I wish somebody would have really given me a perspective on how hard it could be if I wasn't careful, on boundaries that are okay to set
Yes.
early
Yes.
on that I didn't know I could set. And so I think getting into that a little bit would be excellent. Yeah. So I guess just sharing a little bit more about the story of where I came from. So I was in this wonderful associateship and thought I was going to be in that associateship as a partner long term. But I entered into that associateship pregnant. I got pregnant in residency. I was 3 months pregnant when I started working. And I was very clear at the time that I knew I wanted to work 3 or 4 days a week. That was just part of why I had become an orthodontist was to have a balance in my life, to
Yes.
have bandwidth and time to give back to my community and to spend time with my family. And so that was always very important to me. And yet I didn't know how to ask for that
Mm.
because I was so grateful to have a job, really, and to find this practice and to be accepted into this practice. And I agreed to things in my initial contract that I wish I would have been stronger about. I took 2 weeks of maternity leave, and you just don't know the difference. I didn't know the
Right.
difference. I didn't have
Right.
anybody that was out there telling me to do it any differently. So here I
Mhm.
am telling people it's okay to take time off.
Yeah.
Advocate for yourself. Yeah. Yeah. Don't be ashamed of that. And I think
Mhm.
I'm not somebody who, and the world has turned so much even in the last 10 years, right? So I know it's a very different place that people are entering into now where it's more accepting of this. And I see these new residents coming out and they have priorities set. So I think the culture is changing and that's an exciting thing. But at the time when I came into the workforce, it was very, you took what you could get. You didn't
Yes.
negotiate. And again, I didn't know how to stand up for myself as a young female. I think it was a big part of it.
Mhm.
So fast forwarding through that, I had a great associateship. I really did. But when it came time to partner, I knew that the values just weren't aligned. I knew that what they wanted from me was not what I was going to benefit from long term. It
Mhm.
was
Mhm.
the priority differences were there, and nothing against that. Everybody can have their own
Yep.
choices, but it really pushed me to really get clear on what was most important to me
Mhm.
and start thinking more about okay, if where do I want to put my focus and what are my core values? And I know I
Right.
spoke about that to me
Yes.
is one of the biggest things was I've always been a very value driven person. I knew these values inside of me, but I had never clarified them. And taking the time and processing through that and really getting clear on what matters the most has been critical, I think, in my journey. If I hadn't done that, I think I would have been more willing to compromise through those 10 years of the last 10 years. I would have probably made choices
Mhm.
for others more than I did. So I think that's a really big piece of advice that I would give people is get clear early.
Yeah.
And it's and not and stay flexible. Make change. It's not that you have to like, oh, as a 25-year-old, I know what my whole life is going to look like, because
Right.
absolutely not. But
Right.
also just really trying to pay attention to what you need and
Yeah.
make choices around that.
Yeah. And I love that you're saying that because I really do think, and I talk a lot about this a lot with my clients, and
Mm,
I've spoke on this a lot too. But it really is important, and it's okay. It's important to know what your values and what your culture is going to be in the
mhm,
practice that you're going to set up. But I think it's okay too to really understand that if your values aren't aligning with maybe the associateship or the partnership opportunity that is coming your way, that's a really tough thing if you enter into that to live under maybe the weight of culture or
mhm,
values that don't align with yours. And,
exactly.
and like you said, I think it can become a very toxic environment. And I think especially with partners too,
Mhm,
where maybe one's feeling taken advantage of or this, that, or the other because one's value system is very different than the other. And so
yep.
I think that's great that you were able to identify that early
Mhm,
on because it's a really tough thing to get to.
yeah.
So you decided to do a startup and
Right. So
you kind of you
yep.
got going in that direction. You have the
Mhm,
opportunity to set your values, to set your culture.
yep.
Let's talk a little bit about what happened as you got going in your practice. And now,
Mhm,
like so many of us, I always say choose your hard because it's all
yeah.
hard.
It's all hard. Yep. Yep. I love that. That's actually a really great piece of advice, Joe. 'Cause yep.
But
And that's true in life overall, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So let's talk a little bit about that journey as you move it in that direction and maybe some of the and I love it that you said you don't dwell on the past or and I'm not trying to pigeonhole you into this, but
No.
I just love your I love again that you had some real reckoning
Mm,
going along as you were even going through your practice.
absolutely. So those first 3 or 4 years, it, it was all consuming.
Like it is. Like it
Oh,
is.
it is. And again, it was fun for me in the fact that it was creative
Mhm.
and it was I could spend all day creating. That was a passion for me. So we were there long hours, up early. Everything was about the practice. And at the same time at home, I had now a 3-year-old and a newborn. So I had my second son the day that we were supposed to close on the practice. And so we
Wow.
pushed closing a week out. Again, could I have spoken up a little bit more? Yes. Could people have waited on me? Yes. But instead, it
Mhm.
was me obligating or feeling obliged to all of these people that needed me. And that was all I had ever known. So I just kept doing that.
Yes.
And so here I am in these early years, giving my all to everything, giving
Mm.
my all to the practice, giving my all to my family. I remember an assistant had to pick a Cheerio out of my hair one day because I just got ready, ran to the office,
That's
showed
such a
up,
mom
and
thing. I
yeah, she
love
was just
that.
like standing behind me and had to pick a Cheerio out of my hair. And it was just cringeworthy at the time because I thought I had it all put together. I was putting on this facade of I have it all. And like you said, nobody wants to see behind the curtain. My patients, I've learned now, they love that I'm a mom, of
Mm.
course. They want that. But in those early years, it was like, I have to be professional. I have to have it all put together. I have to be trustworthy. And you do. And so you put this face on when you're at work, and then you come home and you're just like, I'm here and I'm doing everything for these kids too. So those first few years were really exhausting.
Mm.
I didn't have any time for myself. I didn't have any time for my health. I didn't have time for friends. It was just all consuming in these two worlds. And then I think for me too, once that first initial phase, once we were launched, it changed. I can talk about two things here, but I think I used this analogy when I spoke about the bar. And I remember even talking to my team about this. And it was, I always said I was going to write a book about this because at the
Yes, and I
time it
want I
just,
want you to expand on this because this is
sure.
such a good point. I want people to hear this.
Yeah. It felt like I had, because I cared so much about this practice and this vision that I had for so many years, it was like I set this bar of expectation for the practice so high. Here is the ideal. Here's what I'm imagining. Here's the vision. And that bar is up here. And I'm the only one who can reach that bar.
Mm.
I know what it is. I know what it should look like. I'm the only one who's tall enough. My arms are long enough to reach that bar. So I'm carrying it all by myself. And I have this team who's there with me, but I don't have the skills because we don't get a lot of management and training skills ourselves.
Yeah.
So I have this team who's willing to help me, but in my eyes, they don't do it well enough, or they don't have the same skill set that I have, or they don't understand it as much as I do. So I'm the only one that can hold this bar up. But then the reality is that bar is just going to get bigger and heavier and more weighted.
Such a
And
visual.
yes, this visual I had is it's like you carry the responsibility of the team culture and of all of your patient care and your marketing and your
Mhm.
HR and the legal compliance. And it's just like all the responsibilities are on the shoulders of that startup doctor. And for me, a solo doctor in a startup, right? So I didn't have a partnership. I didn't have other people to share that weight with. And so you just keep doing it. And my options were basically either I keep holding this bar by myself and either I get stronger or I make that bar lighter, make a choice
Mhm.
there.
Yep.
I can empower my team, get people next to me to try to help support this bar as it continues to grow, or I can get crushed by it. That was what I felt were my three
Right.
options. And I didn't want to be crushed. I knew that wasn't an option.
Mhm.
So then I really became intentional about the other two options. So I've put a lot of time into my team and empowering my team and delegating and not just, and also then growing myself, my own
Mhm.
management skills, my own self awareness, my own ability to let go of the fear of failure and judgment. That's a big part of this is
Sure.
that bar was incredibly high. And I don't need to lower the bar, but I also need to realize like maybe the height of it isn't actually what I think the height of it is.
Mm.
It's like a new perspective on that.
And I think so many of us in business, it's that Superman, or I'll call it Superwoman syndrome,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And being a business owner, I can completely empathize with that position because all of us don't want our businesses to fail. And
Right.
we do all feel the weight of everything on our shoulders, even to the fact that our employees' livelihood
Right.
is dependent upon how well we do.
Yes.
And so I just think that this analogy is so good that you use of, and I can just envision it in my mind because I think all of us, and I want our listeners to hear this, you will be, if you aren't, you will be at this point where you're holding, I
Hmm.
imagine like this barbell up above your head.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
And you're like you said, you're either gonna slowly it's gonna start to drop and slowly you're gonna start to sink, or you're gonna find a way to lighten that load or have some other people come and surround you and help you hold that. And I'm
Mhm.
just so happy for you that you were able to find that and identify that. And to me, that's even goes a little bit just into, I'm gonna say mental health a little bit
Mhm.
because I feel like there are just so many times that we're out there standing on the mountain holding this barbell above our head by ourselves, and we think that nobody is out there to help us with that, and it can get very dark and lonely and
Mhm.
scary too.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you ever felt that way when you were at that. If you, I know you're a pretty positive person, but did you get
Mhm.
into a little bit of a darker space or place when you were there, and was that also something that you worked on?
Yeah. I don't think I'm not like you said, I'm not somebody who has had to struggle with anxiety and depression, and so I very much understand I have that
Mhm.
experience with others that I've known. But even for those that don't have that, it's still a mindset issue. And if we're
Yes.
not, when I hear mental health, I think it's the same as physical health. If we don't take care of ourselves, if we don't take care of our capacity to bounce back and be resilient and think positively and be grateful, you can easily go down this rabbit hole of just negative thinking. And it's not that I'm perfect. I still absolutely have those times where I do that,
There's
but I really worked on skills to get me out of it quicker or to, like a gratitude practice has been an enormous thing just to be able to sit in the present. I think as orthodontists as a whole, the majority of us are these people that just want to always improve.
mm,
We want to drive, we want to achieve. We're very good at finding things to improve. And it's like we're naturally that way. And then our training just drives that into us so much more so that it starts to seep out into the rest of our lives where nothing is good enough. There's
mm,
always faults to find.
sure.
And if you're not careful, that starts to bleed into your relationships. It's now I need a better house. I need a better partner. I need a better
Yes. Such
hairstyle. I
good
don't know. It could just
insight.
be on
It's such
anything.
such good insight.
And
Yes.
and again, I don't think we get talked to about that in school. In school, for me anyway, I had wonderful faculty, but it was a lot of this is the best profession. Orthodontics is the best profession. We hear that all the time. And I think it's probably true.
Mhm.
I haven't worked in another profession, but at the same time, I think there needs to be understanding around the challenges in it and that we're not just going to enter in and it's going to be we get to sit in our office and do all fun things all day long. We need to talk more about the realities of that weight and what we're taking on during the day. So I definitely had challenging days. I've ended up in the hospital, which for me, I'm just
Wow.
it's not something I would ever think about. But I had a coach that warned me that could happen. I
Mm.
didn't believe her. I kept driving and driving. And I had just this moment, it was just almost a year and a half ago of severe pain. And I just battled through it, took ibuprofen until I had a day off because there's no way I can call in sick. Everybody's depending on me. And then you get knocked off your feet.
Mm.
And I just
And
thought
your
that would
body
never happen
says
to me. But your body knows, and
it
your
sure
body will
does.
tell you when you have to stop, whether you like it or not. And so
Yeah.
that was a real wake up call too of, okay,
Wow.
this is true. Mental health, physical health, they matter. A
Yeah.
lot of people
Yeah.
are depending on me. I got to take care of myself.
Yep, absolutely. And sometimes that taking care of yourself is saying no, is
Yes.
asking for help, is
Mm.
doing the things that feel so completely like you're turning left instead of right, and left
Yeah.
is the way you really need to be going.
Right.
So as you come through this, and again, thanks for sharing this because this is just one of those things, like you've said, I don't think we talk about it enough, and I think that we all live our best lives behind a social filter,
Hmm.
and, I think it's just good for people to hear that this is real, you're not the only one out there, maybe holding that bar above your head. But as
Yeah.
you have come along and matured in what you're doing and really come to understand, I love the idea of just sitting under the weight of certain things and reflecting on it and
Hmm.
gratitude journals and all of that. I'd love to hear beyond that if you have some other systems or rituals that you have put in place to help. I almost feel like sometimes we need to recenter ourselves. We can just get spiraling a little bit
Hmm.
and we have to bring it back to center. And I think all of us have
Hmm.
different coping mechanisms. But would you mind talking to that a little bit?
Sure. I think you talk about this too. And I know we've never worked together, but the way that I design my practice week is very similar to what you were speaking about. And I was like,
Yes.
yes, this is so impactful because
Right.
I was very clear from when I opened my practice that I wanted 3 clinical days.
Mhm.
And that had changed even. I was working 4.5 days as an associate. And I was like, you know what? Even 4 days is now too much. I didn't know that starting out. But for me,
Yes.
the 3 clinical days is perfect because I have one day where I start usually a Monday and I prep for my week.
Mm.
And so I don't get the case of the Mondays anymore. Sunday night, I can be fully present with my family because I know that I have the next day when they're out of the house to be able to get
Love
everything
it.
done that I need to get done. That's been huge for me.
Mhm.
And that's a recent development. I find all of this has been a learning curve, right? But over the last 4 or 5 years, I've taken baby steps towards this. And
Mhm.
I think in part that, and for people that start up a practice, you have to hustle. You have to be there for people. Absolutely. I'm not saying that you get to necessarily do all of this at the very beginning, but just know that it's possible and that you can take those baby steps towards it. Because I would work these 3 clinical days at the beginning of the practice, but still be very present, still be on site, still be available to my team
Mhm.
on my days off. And
Yes.
now I've really prioritized those days as days out of the office.
Good
And
for
so my
you.
Monday, thank you.
Good
It
for you.
really has made a huge impact. And so
Yes.
my Monday is my prep day. I work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday clinically. And then Friday is my completely family, personal, you know,
I I
am
love
I
it.
perfect? No, I'm not perfect at it, but typically Friday is completely off
Yep.
work. I'm I don't think about the office. I don't call into the office. I don't check anything with the office. It's those 4 days where I give my attention to the office so that the other 3 days can be home. And that's been
It's
great.
wonderful, and you're
Yeah.
exactly right. I do preach this. I've been talking about this for
Mhm.
years. I encourage my doctors, you need to stay in front of your patients on the 3 days. You have to have a day to work on your business in your business.
Yes.
Then you have gotta have time. It's a very hard thing, I think, work-life balance, and
Yes.
there will never be a perfect it's the unicorn out there. It will never be there, but I think you can have better moments of that.
Mhm.
And when you take control of it and really realize that, yeah, you'll never meet the needs of every single patient out there. And that's okay because there's
No,
a
that is
really
okay.
great peer out there that may. And
Yeah.
we can send them away in love and let them get loved on by somebody that wants to work on Sunday afternoons. You know what I mean?
You got it. Yep. And that was a big lesson too, Jill, of just I didn't have to cater to everyone else and it would still be okay. At first it was just if I didn't for another big thing I was going to tell you another it's not a ritual, but another big thing for me in freedom was handing the on-call phone off to a team member.
Ugh,
That phone was such a weight for me. I
yeah.
wanted to always do my best for my patients all the
Mm,
time. And so when you are on call 7 days a week,
yep.
I could never separate. And I didn't set boundaries around that. That was a piece of advice I wish I was given earlier that it would be
Yes.
okay to hand that to a team member. And to be honest, she's better at it than I am.
Oh,
She's
oh,
got great customer service skills. She can answer their questions in a really easy way. It was always so weighted for me. I just felt immediately, oh my goodness, I screwed up. They're going to be upset. They're going to tell their friends. There was just
yeah.
such an emotional attachment to that phone that now it's
I
gone.
love that, and
Yeah.
again, that's, another thing that I talk a lot but I love that you're right, we should talk about
Mhm.
that more because especially nowadays with cell phones, you should have a cell phone for your practice. You can track the calls, you can track there's
Yes.
so many things that you can do by being able to give that up, and
Yeah.
you said something that I think is really interesting, and I think especially as women, this is a hard thing, is I truly believe most of us always put everybody first. Put our kids
Mhm.
first, put our husbands first, put our business first, put our practice first. And I love
Yeah.
it that as you've been going through this journey, and I think as women, especially, but I think for any of us, we have
Mhm.
to give ourselves permission to put ourselves first sometimes
Mhm.
so that we can
Yes.
have that good mental health and that we can have that. Like one of the things that I've started doing is I finally got to a point where exercise is important to me and
Mhm.
it's so easy, like for all of us, for us just to put everything else ahead and my mental, my physical health becomes last. And so I finally got to this point where I block out certain times. I
Yep.
really follow block time scheduling where
Yes. That's my other
I am
mhm.
blocking time out And it's been a hard thing in years in business. It's been a hard thing to tell my team, don't text me, don't call me, don't try and find me because I'm gonna block some time out just for me in the middle of
Good
my
for
day
you.
to go work out, to go for a walk, to go do what I need to do to keep myself healthy so I don't spiral.
Yes,
And I love to hear that these are some of the I'm sure you
absolutely.
do likewise things.
Yeah, I'm not I'm still working on the exercise. I'm starting baby steps again, so I'm actually my current focus is sleep. I
Ah,
just for
so
so
important.
long, sleep was just when I could sleep and nutrition, and it sounds so dumb. It's like by 40, I should know this, but I
So
really put a
important.
focus on that. Just the
Yes.
self-care, starting at the very bottom. For me, it's just and then going from there, just keeping
Yeah.
my energy up and taking care of myself that way. Back to the time blocking. That's another I was gonna bring that up because that's been an enormous help for me. I even time block. So if I know it, like for instance, this, I knew I had this coming up, I'll time block the preparation time for this as well
Mhm.
so my to-do list is now on my calendar. And
That's
so it's
great.
then
Great
it's a
advice.
communication for my family. They know what I need and when I need it. I know what they need because my husband will also time block his events that he's
Mhm.
talking about and doing. So that's been a big game changer from a communication standpoint with my family and also just giving myself the permission and just a release of the peace of mind. Like I can do all of these things.
Yeah.
And if I can't, I'll see it visually, which I'm a visual person, and I'll know that this is something I have to say no to because I just don't have the time for it. It's not one
Yeah.
more thing I can squeeze in there. And I even block time with my family. I know that sounds really
No, it's
silly, but it's
it's you have to.
5 hours on Saturday. That's kid time. That's family time. Don't fill it with anything else, Jackie. It's a note to self
Yes.
that this matters to me and I'm putting the time on my calendar for it.
Yeah, and I love what you just said, "This matters to me, so I'm blocking it out," because I think that really is it. If it's important to you, you see it, you put it on there, it shows everybody in your life that it's important to you as
Yeah.
well, versus, yeah, we'll get to the park. Yeah, yeah, we'll get to the park. Yeah, yeah, we'll get to the
Mhm.
park."
Exactly.
As we have all done as moms or as parents or whatever, it could be anything, and
Yeah.
that get to the park becomes the next day, the next week, the next month, the next
Yes.
whatever. So
You got it.
I love that.
And I
I'm
thanks.
uh-huh. No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, and I hope I'm showing my kids that they can do anything too, and setting an example for them of this, of you can find that balance. Again,
Mm,
not you have to stay flexible. Yes, I don't get to everything and I have to push it to the next day sometimes, but I'm being intentional and I'm being really deliberate with my life now and my time, and I hope that they see that too.
yeah, that's great. So we talked a little bit about what you've done personally.
Yeah.
Any systems that you when you take this model and say, "Okay, now I'm gonna do this within my office." Talk to me a little bit
Mm.
about some things that maybe you have done to help have more balance within the office or working
Yeah.
on systems there.
Sure. I talked about the on-call phone.
Mm,
I also, and I talked to my team about this, but in the morning, I'll put my to-do list together first thing. I highlight the top 3 or 4 things that I know I have to get to that day. And then I keep that piece of paper right next to me. If things come onto my plate, which they do
yep,
every day, new things are coming
yep,
onto that list.
yep.
I add them so that I'm not keeping them in my head. They're down, they're on paper, but I know that I have to prioritize these 3 things because that was my intention for the day. So that's been a really important thing for just being able to go home and leave work at work,
Mhm.
and know that it's not lost. It's still going to get done. And then the next morning, maybe one of those things becomes the highlighted things, or maybe that has to be a highlighted thing for the day. But at least I have a running log of what I need to do. And I actually have a tear off daily calendar of empowering messages. And so my to do lists usually end up on the back of those. So it's a really great system where I get a
Oh,
positive
love
message
that.
and I tear it off the next day, and that becomes my new to do
Mm,
list.
mhm.
I talked a lot about delegation and empowerment of my team. So that's come, this to be a whole nother podcast, but that comes with getting really clear KPIs, getting really clear duties, making sure the team knows what their responsibilities are and how to do
Yes.
them, giving them ownership over different
Mhm.
systems so that they can build them and run them without your input all the time. Going back to the first years of the practice, I held everything so tightly. Everything was like so important. And I've really learned that my team can do things better than I can do in a lot of cases. And I didn't
Mhm.
believe that. I was told that, but I couldn't believe it until years had gone by. But it is true. And if you give people empowerment and ownership, the right people, they're going to take it and run.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
completely agree. Give them an opportunity to shine.
Yeah.
Give them
Hmm.
the training that they need, and they will And I really believe the right team members want to do good for you.
Yes, they
They
do.
they really want to have an opportunity to shine.
Absolutely.
And
Yes, and consultants and my coaches have really been a help with that. So that's been I cannot plug enough personal coaching and consultants because I couldn't have done all of this without that guidance and that kind of perspective
yes,
from those people. Yeah.
that's wonderful.
And
Well,
I think the biggest, oh, sorry, I was going to say the biggest one really has been digital workflow, which again could be a whole nother podcast, but my practice is now almost 100% digital. I haven't bonded a traditional bracket case in over a year. I use digital custom brackets, I use aligners, and I use Embrace, 3D printed appliances. And so that too, that just increases the chairside delegation, which frees me up to be able to do other things that need my time and
yes.
attention during the day, which keeps everything running so much more smoothly and productively and efficiently.
And I'm glad that's exactly what I was gonna ask you about.
Okay. Yes.
That again, on so many of my younger practices or my startup docs, I'm telling them right from the beginning, we need to
Mhm.
ideally choose our custom or digital solutions right from the beginning because how much easier is it to put systems in place when you don't have systems?
Yes.
So learn when you're slow, learn how to work with those custom brackets or that you want to work with and work on figuring out the systems. And if you're going to
Absolutely.
do your aligners, learn really learn that craft of how that's going to work and
Mhm.
which system you
Mhm.
like the best. And if you're going to do lingual,
Mhm.
and I feel like we have 3 or 4 different options out there, but why not learn this while you're slower and you're putting systems in
Absolutely.
place versus trying to you're rocking and rolling at a stage where you're at and now let's and I know you've talked about that. Now let's put in a
Mhm.
system. It's not easy.
It's not easy. No, you can have a phase of a startup,
Yeah.
the creative stage and then the maintenance stage. And I feel like once you get into that maintenance stage, change becomes more chaotic than helpful. And so
Yes.
I really had to learn that because I'm a change lover. I love change. I love new. I love innovating. And I realized I was really, it was, even though my team also enjoys change, it was making things more complex, more challenging, adding more stress to everybody. So yes, pick your favorites, learn them, become a master of things while you can, and then run with it and just continue making those small
Yeah.
tweaks over time.
Yeah, I love that. And I think too, if you've got the systems in place, even if you
Mhm.
decide, hey, I'm going to switch one out for another, the system is there. You're just
Yes.
now just switching out the product. And
Right.
and I think that's the key. That's my advice for anybody.
Mhm. I love it. It's great
Anybody listening out
advice.
there. Yeah.
Yep.
So as we finish up here, if
Yes.
you had any advice for any of the younger docs that may be listening, or maybe even docs that are in their prime, just like you are, if you were to
Mhm.
leave us with three nuggets of advice that you've learned, what might those be?
Yeah. So first of all, you're not alone. I think we've talked about that already, but I learned early that for me, networking with others was an
Mm,
enormous benefit.
mm,
So I created a small group of women orthodontists in my region that we connected with. I have a group of peers who
great.
are not in orthodontics that are
Mm,
trying to better themselves as parents or whatever it may be. But I really tried to be intentional about building community and building networking of like-minded people that we could support each other. I also sought, like I told you, professional coaching. I think coaching is like therapy with homework. That's what I say. It's like
yes.
for productive people, for achievers, I think coaching is so beneficial because you can share your story, you can share your concerns, but there's something to be done about it. And you can see
Mhm.
your growth over time. And that is very rewarding and beneficial, I think, in a lot of ways. So seeking that, let me think about this, Jill. I was going to say something too, and sorry for getting off track here a little bit, but
Oh,
um,
that's great.
the other thing I was going to say is social media from the community perspective of it has been great. Women in Orthodontics is a really wonderful supportive Facebook group. The other groups I used to spend so much time on them and I still find them so beneficial for a lot of reasons, but I've also learned to lessen my time on them because it became this feeding the beast of needing change, needing to always improve, needing to compare. And I love that
Yes.
stuff. But I also felt like it made it hard for me to stay present and grateful and celebrate where I had come from and where I was. So
Oh,
that's another piece of advice is
that's so good. That's rich.
monitor your time on that.
Yeah, that's really rich. And I love that you said that because That is so true. What thief is the or comparison is the
And
thief
just
of joy.
yes.
And I think it can be so easy in that arena, or gosh, they're doing this technique. Oh, I should be doing that because that'll make
Mhm.
me better, whatever it is. So
Yep.
great. That's
Yeah.
wonderful.
And then
So
the last piece of advice is just be intentional. Drive your life versus letting it drive you. It's
mhm.
too easy to just keep doing things every day. And suddenly there's that common analogy, 1 degree, and you end up in a completely different place if you're not constantly course correcting. And so I just think about that. What is my intention? Where am I heading? I'm really clear on where I want to be as an 85-year-old. I think about that. What does 85-year-old Jacquee want to look like? And again,
Mm,
that comes from my coaching. And so I can set my course on that and just
wonderful.
continually course correct.
Yeah, that's great. And so again, such sage advice, really. I'm sure everybody out there is taking lots of notes and really taking this. And I just really appreciate you opening up to us, sharing, because I know that you have touched somebody's life that's
Mm,
been out there listening. If somebody wanted to
thanks.
get a hold of you, I know you're pretty open, but if they just felt like, "Hey, this really connected," or "I just have got some questions," how would somebody get a hold of you if
Yeah.
they did?
The best way actually is Instagram. So I'm Dr. Dr. Schieck, Schieck is my handle. And I found Instagram to be a really connecting place for me. So
Wonderful.
I am on Instagram. And
Great.
again, I set boundaries around it, but it's been a really fun place to connect with people. So that would be a great place for people to reach out.
Perfect, perfect.
Mhm.
As we finish up here, one of the things that I like to do on Hey Docs is finish us up with a speed round. Are
Yes.
you ready to
I
accept the
think so.
challenge?
Sure. Let's do it.
So, describe in one word your style.
Fashion style, I'm classic with a twist.
Oh, I like that. All
That's not one
right.
word.
I've heard lots of fun things. Anything you're doing just for you. Anything you do just for you.
I recently got a massage chair, and before bed, I sit in my massage chair and binge watch Netflix, Love is Blind, Married at First Sight, just dumb shows, but it's my me
Those are
time.
great. Those are great. Just let it all pour out.
Yep.
Wonderful. Hidden talent.
I'm a pretty open book, but people probably don't know that I tap dance.
Oh,
Maybe I'll have to pull that out. I don't
oh, you
know.
should. And then if you had a big, hairy, audacious goal for 2023, what, or
Mm.
maybe farther than that, what might that be?
Yeah, I can't say I can do this in 2023, but I do dream about living abroad with my kids before my oldest graduates high school. For some extended period of time, I'd
Yeah,
like to live abroad.
that's wonderful. That's a great goal. Thanks again for being
Thank you,
on the
Jill.
show. You're
It's so fun.
awesome.
Thanks, Jill. You too. Thank
Thank
you.
you.